Hey, this is Ryan, and I've been getting a lot of questions about how I've set up my environment for doing things like discovery sessions or navigate sessions or other whiteboarding activities with customers. So I figured I'd give a little bit of a peek behind the scenes at my setup. So let's first switch to this. So this is me with a cell phone on my setup. I'm running all of this actually through a Google Meet, so there's a little bit of inception going on here. But my setup is a run-of-the-mill whiteboard actually on my desk underneath a fixed Logitech 920 camera. I'll put all of these details in the background. But the magic of what makes all of this stuff work is Open Broadcaster Software Studio, or we're just going to call that OBS Studio for now, because this is a bit of a complicated one to keep saying. So OBS Studio, let's go ahead and actually look at what we've got. So let me share the screen. So OBS Studio is open source software. So obviously we love that. I'm actually running this on Windows. I know, go ahead and crucify me in the comments on this, but I find I've dealt with enough customers that could only work on Windows environments that, I'm just not going to deal with it. I am a big Windows subsystem for Linux user that kind of handles those sorts of things. But anyways, go ahead, download OBS Studio. And what OBS Studio will give you is a inception. It creates a virtual camera on your system. So that virtual camera is called OBS Virtual Camera. So if you click in here, I could do either my other two Logitech webcams, but I'm picking this OBS Virtual Camera because now I have software control over what my camera is outputting. So let's get that inception out of here. Go back to the OBS Studio project. So again, it's really commonly used by your YouTube and Twitch and Facebook streamers. It's a ton of material behind it on how to use it. But let's go ahead, I'll pull mine open, and this is what it looks like. So looking at Open Broadcaster Studio, there's a few things to really look at. First one here on the right is controls. And the most important one that we care about for these sorts of sessions is start and stop the virtual camera. Make sure the camera started. If it's stopped, you end up with the picture that you have right now for my face, that OBS logo. So we'll go ahead and start that back up. The second thing I like to do, and this is more because of Google Meet and how I like to do these presentations, I like to have my face still up and yet a second camera running. So I actually do this using studio mode. So in studio mode, you have a preview as well as your program. Program is what's actually going out through the camera right now. Preview is what's going to come next. So I could hit transition, I'll switch to that and flip-flop them. But really what I like to use this for is I can open this as a separate window, right, like this. And that is, my second window. And I can present this window through Google as my presentation window, and you now have a whiteboard. So just like that, that's the simplest thing to actually getting a whiteboard presented. So we'll look at what we needed to make that happen. So the first piece is scenes. Scenes are basically descriptions of what does your camera output look like. So for this one, this whiteboarding camera, I have a video capture device. I have basically my Logitech 920. And so that's it. So I can basically just put it in, scale it. Oh, wait, that looks really weird. Yeah, it's, I can rotate it. I can flip it. That looks a bit more right. So one thing to be aware of, as I mentioned, is do not rely on your preview of yourself in Google Meet. Google does this weird thing where it actually intentionally flips your video. And I've got an example of it right here. This is a call I was on earlier. Don't make fun of me using Paint, it's what I had. Where if you look at my video screen, I'm flipped. I'm just this OpenShift logo. But if you look at the screenshot of it, they're seeing me the right way. So first, Google does it. Just trust what's in OBS as your source of truth for what you should be seeing. So scenes, again, these are drag and drops. You can adjust them, scale them up, scale them down, move them around, whatever. It's a very intuitive thing, and you can add as many sources as you want. So I've got, for instance, a source that I like to use that's just a straight image, the Red Hat OpenShift logo. So I can be, away from camera, yet my camera is still on. People still see me or see this. I just feel like it looks pretty good. Or other cameras that I've got, I've got one of this entire screen. So another little camera inception. So I'll use that one often if I need to share my screen with someone in a very quick way, especially if I'm doing whiteboarding, which is what I primarily use that for. Additionally, as you may have caught on, my cell phone is also a scene. That I use a additional plugin source. So it is open source. That's kind of nice. So let me put that back to offline so we don't get too sick looking at the inception. So a couple of things I've added on to really make my OBS Studio experience really start to flow is one, Droid Cam. This is the one I use, but there are several options in whether you have iPhones, Androids, whatever, to use your phone as a camera. So if you don't have a second webcam, that's a great option. Use an old phone, and it connects either over Wi-Fi or USB. I'm doing mine over Wi-Fi. It looks just fine, actually, in my opinion. So that's an option, and especially considering a whiteboard, you don't need super high resolution or high refresh rates. So that's one thing I use. The other thing I use is this program called Touch Portal. Touch Portal is an application. It's an app for, I think, for both iOS and Android. I'm using it personally on Android, where I get touch control buttons to control how I'm using OBS. And again, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because there's tutorials out there aplenty, but two particular things I really like to use with this is I've created a button here for screenshotting the whiteboard. So if you look in here, you open it up, you can just create buttons, and you have all of these actions of things you can do. So the one I've created here, I can go into OBS, and there's this action. I'm going to take a screenshot to a file. So I can take a screenshot of either whiteboarding, that particular scene, or of my current scene or current preview scene, which is what I'm doing. Can specify the file format, and I can actually save it out to a file. And there is a dynamic text variable, so you can continuously do this. And so by doing that, I'm actually able to create a button, and there's a sync process. It's all in the directions. I won't go through too much of that, where now I have a button on my tablet in front of me as we're going through, we're whiteboarding away, we're writing out whatever we're looking for. I've got this button I can tap on my tablet, screenshot, and all of a sudden I have a file saved of a screenshot, and we can just keep going in the process. Just like that, I've got a whole record of screenshots that I can throw back in when I'm doing any sort of follow-up documentation, anything after the fact. Really powerful tool. So all of that kind of comes together. That's my setup. if you're looking for more tutorials on any of it, there's tons of options of things out there, being one of the most popular broadcast studios for Twitch, for YouTube, for Facebook, for all of those sort of live streams. So you'll find tons of material out there. This is just kind of the little niche of how I'm using it for delivering discovery sessions, navigate sessions, or any sort of whiteboarding activities I want to do with the client. So thank you for watching. I'll go ahead and put in the descriptions all of the different hardware that I'm using. Again, what I'm using doesn't really matter because it's open source. It's very flexible to whatever you may have. So again, thank you for watching.